Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. English too. Stanley, get up. Stanley, you are not part of this video. Anyway, good whatever time of day, guys. Let's get rocking and rolling. First things first, I talked about this in the Zoom meeting today, and I gotta say it again. The namesake. As we talked about, and y'all were pretty astute in pointing out, the point of me assigning the book and the thought questions is not because I want you to necessarily have a right answer, because I want you to memorize quotes or know a plot or anything like that. It's to get you reading the book and applying it to your own life, the same way you would do with like a television show like Riverdale or a song or whatever. That's what we as humans do with art, and that's my point. Your answers are not meant to come from any source online. It's very obvious when you do. And it negatively affects your grade. In that same vein, and this will apply to both the namesake thought questions and the readings on the Faith Cure Man. So let's look at that real quick and I'll point it out for you. Let's see. Okay. Let's go to the namesake thought questions. What do you think is unusual? Spoiler alert, by the way, if you have not gotten to chapter 7. Let me do another question that won't reveal anything. Here we go. Number 2. How does Gogol defy Maxine while he is in Cleveland? And why do you think he does this? Some of the responses I already received were only a couple of words or a couple of sentences. Notice if it helps you to do a do what, like we've done in class, where you break down the do's, the verbs, and the nouns of what, or adjectives that they're referring to, do so. But if you notice here, it's asking you for 2 parts. How does Gogol, this is asking from the text, what exactly is Gogol doing that defies Maxine? And then why do you think he does this? Not why do I, not why. It's up to you. Determine it. There's no right or wrong answer, but think about it. I'm trying to get you to think about the book. Same thing. Let's look at the Faith Cure Man. In those last 2, we've got the short answer questions. They are meant to be, and I know it's deceptive because it only puts a line, but it'll extend. I want these going forward, and if anyone has submitted it and wants me to resubmit it back, I will gladly do so. These are meant to be, normally in class, they would be a full message. However, I know we're in a different situation. I'll accept a paragraph. However, look at what it's saying. How does the narrator's view of the Faith Cure Man differ from Martha Benson's? So you're going to be looking at the narrator's view of the Faith Cure Man and Martha Benson's. You're comparing and contrasting. And then you're adding in actual textual evidence. You need to include quotes. That is very important. Same thing for number 12. How does the author's use of dialect enhance our understanding of the character? This week, I'm posting some stuff about dialect that should help you answer that question if you're struggling with it. But in the same vein, you're going to want to cite examples from the text. Okay. If anyone has any questions about that, feel free to reach out. In terms of the Faith Cure Man, like I for some of you, this may be a bit of a review because we have done this. We did this in our Zoom meeting today. But with the Faith Cure Man, let me pull it up and reshare it with you guys. It employs something called dialect, which, as I explained, is when an author tries to mimic human speech or distinctions in human speech based on based on the distinctions people have. For instance, how I say, and you all make fun of me the way I say coffee. If a writer is writing that out, just spelling the word coffee, C-O-F-F-E-E, does not convey my pronunciation. So they may write it as C-A-A-W or C-A-W-F-E-E, however, to convey that I personally pronounce it coffee. So let's look, and like I said, we did this in our Zoom meeting, at the speech here. And it helps, and this is something I do, and it's for those of you going on the English 3, it'll really help you because you will be reading a novel that is told almost entirely through dialect. But let's look. Let me share it with you guys. That would help. Share. Okay. Po little lammy. It helps to read it aloud. That's what for stuff like this, that's what I do personally. This is some of my Mr. Template Toolbox stuff where I pull it the same way I read. Po little lammy, she said to the child. Mammy's little gal bound to get well. It may not make sense if we're reading it quietly to ourselves, but by saying it aloud, I realize that that's probably her way of saying bound. Same thing, get instead of get, right? Mammy gwon send her out into country when the spring comes, where she can roll into grass and pick flowers and get good and strong. Notice here, where, it's saying where, or even here. Huh is a word sometimes we use in class a lot, right? When we're not understanding something. Huh? It's not huh as a question, but when you say it and think of it in context, Mammy gwon send her. Send her. And that leads us to, let me pull this up, to our IXL for the week. This is something that we were kind of doing when we were doing Zinc in class, trying to get us to identify the meaning of words even when we may not understand them. So for instance, and it's something we as readers and writers do all of the time. So for instance, when I'm reading The Namesake, I'm for sure, guys, I am not a genie or a wizard. There are certain words I may come across that I don't know. If I'm not in a position to look it up, which I don't always do, sometimes we want to get through things, right? I can use the context clues just like here in our IXL lesson to determine the meaning. So let's see, let's start with number 1 and look. Michelle was consistently disappointed by the programs she saw on TV, which were dominated by vacuous, which is a word I've never really come across, reality shows and sitcoms. After years of suffering through such empty entertainment, she finally canceled her cable subscription, retreating to the books and the occasionally highly reviewed movie. Okay. What do we think this means? So let's see, we're saying Michelle is disappointed by what she sees on TV, that it's reality shows and sitcoms. Do those, do you think, have a negative or a positive connotation? Often, I mean, I like both, but they're often negative, right? They're seen as empty and, oh, I spoiled it for you. After years of something, so it's empty entertainment. This is saying by adding this to it, it's indicating that it's repeating what was said. So I'm going to assume that vacuous means empty. Yes, it does. And now it's going to ask me again in what it's meaning here. Empty is another word for mindless. Let's get to into, okay, here we go. Try one more before moving on. A month-long drought combined with summer heat has created a major water shortage in the Southwest. Regional officials have prohibited residents from watering their lawns and washing their cars, calling the dearth of portable water a temporary emergency. So, what do we think dearth means? And what is, it's a type of water, there's an emergency of it. What's going on? Well, the problem is a major water shortage. So I'm going to assume that dearth means shortage. I'm right. Yes. All right. Let's look at the second one. Meaning of use of antonyms in context. Remember, antonyms are opposites. When Aiden decided to become a vegan, he eschewed meat, eggs, and dairy and embraced animal-friendly alternatives like tofu and almond milk. In the process, he became a proficient cook and an excellent baker. All right. We know most of us have heard of a vegan, right? A vegan is someone who doesn't eat animal products. So, as a vegan, he's going to eschew meat, eggs, and dairy, meaning he'll probably eschew meat to not, if he's a vegan, he's not going to have those things, but he's going to embrace animal friendly alternatives. So, eschew must mean to not want or something along those lines. And I'm going to assume embraced is the opposite. Wonderful. Avoided or kept away from. Let's try one more. The sloth can hardly be described as lively. The furry mammal, which lives in the trees of Central and South American rainforests, is so torpid that algae actually grow in its coat, giving it a greenish tinge. What is it that we are defining the sloth as? Slow, right? That's what we think a sloth is. If it's torpid, so slow that even algae can grow on it, because algae, remember, grows in like ponds and water that doesn't move a lot, I would assume the opposite of a sloth is torpid is lively. And one more. Using context. All right, this one's going to be a little longer probably. All right, we're going to read the whole passage. When the people think about the medieval period in Europe, also known as the Middle Ages or Dark Ages, they often conjure up images of war, plague, and famine. Many imagine people living in squalor, with dirty houses and little personal hygiene, and believe that scientific and intellectual progress came to a standstill during this time. There is a popular tendency to discount the medieval era as an inferior period between the glory of the Roman Empire and the splendor of the Renaissance. The conception of the Middle Ages is largely inaccurate, however. The Middle Period saw the founding of the first universities in Europe, as well as the construction of impressive cathedrals such as the Notre Dame of Paris. A number of scientific inventions, such as eyeglasses and mechanical clocks, improved everyday life considerably during this time. The use of heavy plows, horse collars, and water mills also increased agricultural productivity. There was no paucity of literary genius either, meaning poetic masterpieces such as Chaucer's Canterbury Tales and Dante's Divine Comedy were written during the Middle Ages. Perhaps we should think twice then before using the term Middle Ages pejoratively to describe anything that is perceived as backwards, unsophisticated, or ignorant. What is the meaning of paucity as used in the passage? Well, what are we talking about in this part of the passage? That the medieval period is actually not this dark period of no intelligence and no this. They developed glasses, they developed universities, they developed clocks. And so plows, horse collars, water mills. And they're saying there was a lot of literary genius, right? The Canterbury Tales, the Divine Comedy. So if we're going to think about that, what might be the best one to say? Is it appreciation? No, we don't get the impression that they don't appreciate it during that time. Diversity? Maybe. Shortage? And if we're talking about how much of something there is, maybe that could fit. Inconsistency? No. I don't know about you, but I'm leaning towards shortage. Let's see. Okay. And it's even gonna, is it gonna explain why? No. Okay. So that's kind of how that goes. If you have any questions about it, any questions about anything in this video, about the NPR article or the dialect, feel free to reach out to me. If not, I will see you on Thursday at your regular meeting time for either first or second period. Otherwise, I love you. Get out.